A few years back, the girlfriend and I went to an anime convention in Germany. They had a bar with a karaoke machine set up in one room, and right when we walked in, Simple and Clean started playing. Now imagine a room full of about 50 drunk German men in cosplay, blaring the famous Kingdom Hearts opening, echoing through the hallways. Yeah, I closed the shit out of that door as fast as I could, but it was too late. She looked at me with disgust, knowing full well that I'm a big Kingdom Hearts fan. Not that I started singing as well, surely not. What is good, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Backlog Project, where we play through a gigantic list of games to find out which of them is worth putting onto your backlog. Got a game you'd like to see on the show? Check the description of the video to take part in our weekly poll, where you get to decide the next game I'll review. Since the incident, I've been trying to get the girlfriend to try the series out, but she just won't, even though the game is so much more than cringy cutscenes and Disney characters. Right? I mean, I grew up with this game, so maybe it's super weird and I just don't see it because I'm blinded by nostalgia. We need to get to the bottom of this right now! Okay, so if you're somehow unfamiliar with Kingdom Hearts, here's one info that's super important to not go "What the fuck?" when you see the footage in this review. The game is a crossover of Final Fantasy and Disney, with some original characters rounding things off. Now that you know this, you're good to experience this interesting mix of franchises. Kinda. The game still starts off exactly as strong as I remembered it to. A mysterious cutscene with Sora falling endlessly, trying to grab hold of his friends Riku and Kairi, while Hikaru Utada's banger Simple and Clean runs in the background until he finally wakes up on a mosaic of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which is also where we assume control of our spiky-haired protagonist. The incredible music kicks in and we're presented with 3 weapons, a sword, a shield, and a staff, of which we have to choose one and discard another. This and the following seemingly random questions are a little personality test that decides how Sora's stats and abilities will evolve over the game, how good he is at melee, magic, and defense, which abilities he will learn, and how much XP he needs to level up. It's a fun idea to give the player some control over how to play the game, but it's very bizarre and can lock you into a playstyle you don't even want without you knowing you ever chose it. This intro section also serves as a general tutorial for how to fight and explore the game world, and finishes in a spectacular boss fight, making for one hell of an opening, especially considering this came out in 2002. And then it starts getting weird. Sora is your average teenager, living in a small seaside town with a little island off the coast that he spends most of his time on. Some Final Fantasy cameos like Tidus and Wakka also live there, along with his 2 best friends Riku and Kairi. They love their lives there, but they all share the same dream, seeing more of the world than just their boring everyday life. Or rather, worlds. As it turns out rather early in the story, Kingdom Hearts plays in a universe of sorts, where every world exists separate from each other, but is theoretically part of the same space. No one can enter or leave their worlds, and only a select few know other worlds even exist. Until the Heartless came, that is. Sora's world gets invaded by these black, gooey monsters that seem to want to take the hearts of people and devour the whole world when they invade it. And since Sora and his friends are just some kids, they easily get swallowed up by the darkness. Only that Sora is chosen by the Keyblade, and instead of losing his heart, he gets transported to Traverse Town, where he meets Donald and Goofy, who have been sent on a mission to find the bearer of the key by their missing King Mickey. Sora is trying to find his friends anyway, so the unlikely trio teams up to explore worlds in their spaceship, which is now possible because the invasion of the Heartless has destroyed the barriers between worlds. Rid said worlds of the Heartless and hopefully find their friends in the process. Complicated? Yeah. Weird? Also yeah. And it gets even crazier and more convoluted as the story progresses, but let's not go there for spoiler reasons. Let me just say that while the story is engaging, gut-wrenching, and builds very deep lore from what is at its core a simple tale of light versus dark, it's also just plain weird at times, and you need a high tolerance for cringy dialogue.
You're stupid!
There's a reason why there are so many Kingdom Hearts out of context compilations floating around the internet. It's just a game that doesn't make sense if you don't play it from start to finish, but when you do, you appreciate it all the more. Kingdom Hearts is one of those early 2000s games that can still look pretty incredible even today. This is mainly due to the art style. Going for something that fits in with the already established and used in the game looks of Disney characters was the right decision here. Characters and enemies look distinct, interesting and stylized, but also cohesive in the universe the game takes place in. While the original characters like Sora incorporate pretty much any known shonen manga character trope, all licensed Disney characters like Donald and Goofy, as well as all the Square Enix cameos like Cloud or Squall, look pretty much exactly like they do in other media, except for adjusted outfits to fit the theme of the game. The real winner here are the enemy designs though. There are tons of different Heartless, and each and every one of their designs is memorable, unique, and just incredibly fun. While the earlier enemies tend to look cute or weird, later enemies can get pretty disturbing and intimidating. I think this reflects Sora's journey very well, going from a kid that somehow gets chosen as the Keyblade Master to learning to actually live up to that role. The rest of the graphics aren't always so great. While the levels still look very distinct and vibrant due to the game's color palette, textures definitely show their age here. You won't notice it most of the time, but some things like static water movement or close-up shots of a character's non-animated face just take you out of the experience. And no amount of HD upscaling can hide the fact that this is, at its core, an over 20 years old game. Just look at this scene for example. Was that weird? Stuff like this is what I meant when I said you need a high tolerance to play this game. Not that I want to bash the voice acting, in fact for a game this old, the voice work is absolutely stellar and makes the game feel a lot like an interactive movie, with lots of voiced cutscenes that are very reminiscent of their Disney counterparts, and a big part of that is the inclusion of the original voice actors of all Disney characters appearing in the game. Hearing the familiar voices of Donald Duck, Ariel, or even Mickey Mouse just naturally live in this crossover universe and interact with characters outside their usual settings plays a large role in why this game is still a thoroughly enjoyable experience nowadays. Another reason for that is the phenomenal score by Shimomura Yoko. Every track not only perfectly fits the scene, level, or fight it's used in, they're also all songs you will remember for the rest of your life. Even though the last time I played the game before this review was when it came out in 2002, I always found myself humming some of the memorable themes like Destiny Island's summary ensemble of brass instrument and castanets, or Traverse Town's nostalgia-inducing sax and piano duet. And it's not just that every track is great, there are so many of them. Usually your average RPG has 1 or 2, maybe 3 combat tracks across the game with some boss specific music thrown in. Kingdom Hearts has combat music for every world that always uses the same leitmotif but bases the track off of the world's theme. These world themes are also very reminiscent of the original soundtracks of each of the Disney films they're based on, so you're getting a great variety of amazing music and it never gets boring. Kingdom Hearts is an action RPG with a heavy focus on combat and exploration of the aforementioned worlds, which are sectioned off into smaller zones. Fighting takes place in these zones where you can use the terrain to your advantage, jumping onto higher ground, dropping to a lower level to dodge an attack, or luring your enemies to an advantageous position can give you the edge you need to win your battles. Regardless of which build you went for in the intro, standard attacks with your Keyblade will be your bread and butter in the combat of Kingdom Hearts. You will spend a lot of time doing ground and air combos, dodge rolling and blocking, and you can even learn new abilities like a sliding attack, different combo finishers, or passives that increase your maximum combo count. The melee combat is incredibly fluid, especially considering the age of the game, and even though it's simpler than similar action games like Devil May Cry due to not having systems like weapon switching or timing your attacks for different combos, the fluidity and speed of the combat makes it incredibly fun. And we're not even done yet, because any good RPG, and Final Fantasy game especially, needs some sort of magic system. If you've watched some of my streams, you'll know I'm not a big fan of using magic in RPGs, so what I'm about to say might surprise you, but Kingdom Hearts manages to not only make magic feel strong and fun to use, but also incorporate it very well into the melee gameplay, which makes it one of the few games I actually make use of the magical tools I'm given. Sora can learn different iconic Final Fantasy spells like Fire, Cure, and Stop over the course of the game and spends his MP to use them. They're not overly complicated, and while there is a weakness system for elemental attacks, it's not really important, so you usually just use what you feel fits the situation most, like using the more area covering thunder magic to hit multiple enemies. Simple stuff. What makes the system interesting is that not only can you weave them in between your melee hits, your attacks also charge a secondary MP gauge. Once that little yellow line on top of your blue MP bar fills to the point where your current MP is, you'll get 1 point of MP back. Of course, this means that you'll get MP back faster the lower your current MP count is. This results in combat in Kingdom Hearts revolving around spending your MP to use powerful spells alongside melee hits, while making sure to keep the gauge low enough to have it recharge quickly, but also never drain it, so you have a safety net for when you need healing in a tight spot. And you will need that, because while the game is pretty simple in the first 2/3, there's a pretty heavy difficulty spike in the last few worlds of the game, forcing you to make heavy use of dodging, blocking, and healing. Especially in Proud Mode, which is Kingdom Hearts' word for hard, you need to be very careful and learn how enemies move to avoid getting hit by something that can badly hurt or outright kill you. With over 40 enemy types in the game, these movement patterns take a while to get down, and you'll probably see that game over screen more often than you'd like to. It's not a big issue though, because the game just puts you back at the start of the fight you just lost. Bosses are similarly interesting to fight, with each of the more than 30 big bads having unique abilities, most of them even being fought in a specific arena that is incorporated into the fight. For example, one of the earlier bosses uses a nearby heat source to empower themselves with fire, giving them a new set of abilities. Another one is invulnerable until you cast the appropriate magic at a certain spot of the arena. There's an incredible variety here, making the bosses exceptionally rememberable and making you always looking forward to the next one. However, this also means that some of the bosses are complete duds and no fun to fight at all, but I guess that's the price you pay for creativity. To keep up with the enemy's ever-increasing strength, Sora and his party will gain XP by defeating enemies, as well as blocking and deflecting attacks. Earning enough XP will level them up, resulting in increased health, MP, defense, and attack, as well as new abilities. What I really like about the leveling in Kingdom Hearts is that you don't level up after a fight, like you might be used to from classic JRPGs like Final Fantasy, but right there, in the middle of combat. It doesn't really change anything gameplay-wise, but it feels cool to have a level up just pop up on the screen while you're wailing on enemies and not disrupting your gameplay flow. These abilities you learn can either be passive bonuses like higher MP generation or increasing the money you get from enemies, to active skills like the dodge roll, blocking, or finishers for your different combos. Activating these requires AP, of which you only have a limited amount increased by leveling up, which means that you will never be able to activate all of the abilities the game gives you. Rather, it makes you choose the right abilities for the right situation, since you can always just change them out at any time you're not in combat. For example, you won't need your dodge roll in Atlantis because you can't roll underwater anyway, so the ability points might be better spent in another skill while you're in that world. Trying out different builds can give you a pretty different gameplay experience, so it's definitely a fun feature to have, and I hope they expand upon it in the later entries. As I said earlier, Kingdom Hearts features various different worlds, most of them from Disney movies, each of them being split into multiple areas. It's a PS2 game, open world wasn't a thing back then, that you can fully explore. And you want to do that because there's a lot of stuff to find. Money, items, equipment, and crafting materials to be exact. Due to Sora's ability to jump, these areas are often very vertical, with lots of hidden treasure to find by climbing up ledges or activating hidden switches. The areas are also interconnected, which means that there are often different ways to get to or exit an area, and multiple areas are connected to each other. This makes the areas feel much more open and like a world, rather than a string of separate zones, and to navigate them, all you have to do is take a look at your minimap and... oh wait, there's no minimap in this game. Alright, so every time you don't know how to get to where you need to go, you go into the menu and no normal maps either? Oh god. With the game featuring quite a bit of backtracking to further the story, have fun learning the layout of each world, because if you don't, you'll get lost a lot and fight all these respawning enemies while you run around like a headless chicken trying to figure out where to go. Not that that's happened to me. There's gotta be at least some sort of overworld map though, what with how the game takes place in a universe of multiple worlds, right? Oh, there it is. Alright, there we go. Just gotta choose the world to zoom over to, and oh, it's a shoot 'em up! Once we're in space, we get full control of our ship and have to dodge enemy fire and obstacles, while shooting as many enemies and getting their loot as we can until we arrive at our chosen destination. There's even a high score and a complete set of missions for each level to make this into its own sub-game. And to top it off, you can use the loot you get from the enemies to customize your ship with new weapons, shields, armor, and other gimmicks, or even build your very own ship. Except that the ship builder sucks ass with how convoluted the whole UI is, and the button mapping just not really making any sense. And saving your ship is even worse. I can't even count the times I accidentally overrode my current ship instead of creating a new one. I've heard many people say the Gummi ship portions of the game are bad, but to be honest, I disagree on this. Yes, the building is atrocious, but once you manage to actually create a decent ship, it's a fun minigame that even gets pretty challenging in the later hours of the game, and downright hard when you go for the completely optional completion of all missions. But these missions are just one of the many side quests of the game. You can collect the 99 Dalmatians, postcards, or even pages of a mysterious book that will allow you access to the secret Winnie the Pooh world, filled with, admittedly pretty bad, minigames. The game also allows you to synthesize items at the Moogles. Yes, there are Moogles in this workshop from your collected materials, the later synthesis being some of the best items in the game and requiring a lot of material farming to craft. And this doesn't mean mindless grinding. These items can only be obtained by fighting specific rare spawn enemies that only show up once you have access to the final boss, and fighting these enemies is often more of a puzzle than it is normal combat. It's a fun and creative take on the usual best gear grind JRPGs tend to throw at you near the end of the game, but that doesn't change the fact that it takes way too long. A game about different Disney worlds wouldn't be complete without the ability to go to Hercules' world of Olympus and fight in the Colosseum. Square Enix thought the same and decided to pack this world full of fun fights and challenges. There are 4 cups you can enter that each consist of multiple, up to 50, back-to-back fights against specific sets of enemies from the other worlds of the game, many of which you've never fought together, making for some fun battles. Of course, there are also a number of bosses you get to fight here, like Hades, Kingdom Hearts' take on the iconic Final Fantasy summoned Titan, and even a certain one-winged angel. Speaking of Final Fantasy and bosses, Kingdom Hearts is a Final Fantasy game at heart, so obviously it wouldn't do to not have some super bosses to give players something to try out those hard-earned best items and high-level abilities. There is a total of 5 of these bosses, each with their own style of combat. Some are more gimmicky, while others are a true test of combat skill. Regardless of which you fight, they're all fun, memorable, and the perfect way to end off a deep and thoroughly enjoyable, albeit a bit too lengthy, completion process. If you play the PS2 or Nintendo Switch version, that is, because if you're playing on a system that features achievements, there are a few extra challenges you won't tick off by simply completing everything in the game. Besides beating the game on Proud difficulty, you are also tasked with 3 different objectives on clearing the game. Defeat the last boss within 15 hours of starting the game, without ever dying, and without ever changing your equipment. After completing the game on Proud before tackling these achievements, my recommendation here is the following. Play through the game on beginner or final mix difficulty and use that save for completion, depending on if you want it to be an easy ride or decently challenging. After that, do the 3 challenges and finally tackle Proud mode after you're thoroughly familiar with the game. Just don't try to fight the super bosses on Proud difficulty. Even with a fully geared and leveled party, these guys will easily kill you in mere seconds and are a nightmare to fight. Although it definitely lives up to the name, and there's a certain pride to take in actually beating the game that way. It's also kinda masochistic though. Alright, before we get into my verdict on Kingdom Hearts, if you enjoyed the review so far, you could really help me out by giving the video a like to spread it to a few more people. Thank you. Going into this, I was honestly expecting to be hit by a brick wall of badly aged game design, but I can happily confirm that this really wasn't the case. Kingdom Hearts still plays very well, even over 20 years after its release, with a simple but very fun action combat system that has enough depth to make the more challenging content strategic rather than frustrating, a wonderful art style that transcends console generations, and some of the most memorable music in all of gaming. Sure, the story can be pretty weird at times, but once you get into it, you're treated to a wonderful tale of friendship and rivalry, tightly packed into a setting that masterfully combines Disney fan favorites and Final Fantasy style world building and lore. Playing through Kingdom Hearts should be on the bucket list of every gamer out there, because you're hard pressed to find a game that is as simple and clean as this dearly beloved RPG classic. Yeah, I made that joke. Have you played Kingdom Hearts before, or have you always avoided it because of the memes? Let me know in the comments. By the way, we've got a Discord server, so if you want to have some fun conversations about games with me and the community, find people to play with, or just have another Discord where you have everything muted except for the pets channel so you can get your daily fix of cute animals, check the link in the comments and join us. Thank you very much for watching, and remember to always keep that backlog rolling.